In today's tutorial, we're going to take a look at how to make this amazing collectible UI to pop up every time you pick up a collectible item in the game. Now, in this part, we're going to take a look at the actual UI portion of it, and in the next part, we're going to take a look at the actual collectible part of it. You can tell me that you like these tutorial series by hitting that like button and also subscribing to the channel so I can actually continue to make more and more videos like this for you. So, without any further ado, let's get started. To get started, let's create a new folder and name it Collectibles. Inside of this folder, first thing that we're going to create is a blueprint class of type actor. Now this blueprint is going to hold the actual collectible. When we pick it up, this is what we're going to use to create the UI. So we're going to call it collectible underscore UI. This is what we're going to use to create our render target. To do that, inside of the actual blueprint, we're going to go and create a static mesh and name this collectible mesh. And for the purpose of this tutorial, I went ahead to Fab and downloaded some gemstone pack. It was free. And this is what I'm going to be using as my collectible. So I'm going to select one of these stones. Again, you can choose to use anything of your choice for your game. And I'm going to increase the size to 5 just so that it's bigger, just like that. And now I'm going to select the default scene route and then enter a scene capture 2D component. I'm going to move this around so it's facing the stone. Under scene capture options, texture target, you want to click on this none and select render target. And this will ask you where you want to create the render target. I'm going to go and select the collectibles folder and right click and create a new folder and name it materials. And inside this materials, I'm going to rename this file as rt collectible underscore UI. What this essentially creates is a render target file with the stone inside of it. We can use this to now adjust our camera. I'm not going to adjust the physical camera because I think it's close enough. I'm going to adjust the field of view to get it close as possible. So I'm going to reduce this about there, about 24. Now, while having the camera selected, we want to go to our primitive render mode and select use show only list. And in our construction graph, we're going to drag in our scene component and also our collectible mesh, put it down here. Off of the scene component, we're going to say show only component, connect this to the construction script, and then collectible mesh into the component. What this does is in our scene component, in our render target, it only shows this stone and nothing else in the background. Let's head back to the viewport for a moment and then select the default scene route. And I'm going to add a rect light, not the directional, but a rect light, and rotate it towards the stone. This makes it so that the stone is a little bit more highlighted compared to not having the rect light. Now we compile and save. We can close this. In our actual game, go and drag this blueprint into the scene and move it underneath the map where the player cannot typically see it. Now, this is going to create a new problem. If you go to our RT collectible, this has the skybox in the back. So what we want to do is go back to our BP, go to your viewport, select the scene capture, and up here you're going to search for flags. And you have a whole bunch of flags that you can select from. The flags that we're going to select is skylighting, anti-aliasing, atmosphere, BSP, cloud, decals, fog, landscape. We're going to deselect all of that. And now if I were to compile and save, you'll notice that the skybox is gone. But we still have one more problem, which we're going to take a look at in just a moment. So now we can go ahead and close that. And inside of this folder, I'm going to create a new folder for the UI. I'm going to right click, user interface, widget blueprint, user widget. We are going to name this W underscore collectible UI. Inside of here, we're going to first set up a canvas panel. Select the canvas panel and add an image. We're going to come and modify this in just a moment. And now, just to show you how it will look in game, if I were to just put this image in the middle, now that we have our image, to set up a brush for it, we need a material type. We can't use the render target. So we're going to go back to our materials and right click on this render target and then say create material. Open this material, and first we want to make this into a user interface material and also make it translucent. Now you can click on apply and connect this RGB into the final color. What this will create for you is a new problem to solve. If I were to go back and select that material and drop it in here, you will have a first issue that you see right away is that there is a black background in the back of the actual image. We want to get rid of it. We are only focused on the stone. To do that, we can actually update the material. First, I'm going to go into this render target and I'm going to make this into 512 by 512. To fix that issue, to isolate all the blacks, this makes it easier because it's black, so we can make this entire image into a grayscale image and then reduce all the blacks and keep all the grays. Instead of having to pick out each and every single color, this is the easiest way to do it. So first we're going to take our RGB and then we're going to desaturate it. What this is basically select the texture sample and make this into a linear color. That's what the error is showing. Add a desaturation node. If you don't know what desaturation does, if I connect this to the final color, you'll notice that it's black and white. So this is what we are doing. We're removing all the colors, and then now we're going to say, hey, anything that's black, get rid of it. And what this affects also is that if your actual collectible has a lot of black in it, this is going to hurt it. So be very mindful of what your material is going to be or your collectible is going to be when you're using this trick. Anyways, so we're going to connect this RGB back into the final color because we're going to use a desaturation on the opacity, not on the actual final color. So we're going to just, make all the black opaque. So, and then we're going to do a power node. And the exponential, we're going to make it 0.001. And I'm going to go do a subtract node. And we're going to search for a constant and make this constant something like 0.05 and connect it into B. Now we want to clamp this from 0 to 1 so it doesn't go anything above or below. And then connect this to the opacity. Now click on apply and save. Now if I go back into my UI, you notice the black background is now gone. It's only the stone that is visible. And this is exactly what we want. Now, let's continue building on this widget UI. What we want to show is just a little black screen, and it's going to have the image on the top and also a little bit of the text. So to do that, we're going to go ahead and wrap this image with an overlay. And we're going to add a text box inside of the overlay. And also, we're going to grab it and put a border in there. And put the border on the top. So it goes to the back. This overlay, we're going to go ahead and anchor it to right side because I want this to be on the right and move this over here. So when the player collects it, it's going to pop out and it's going to show the collectible and then it will just disappear. And move the anchors around. Select the border and select it to fill. I'm going to make this into brush color black. We want to add in a vertical box. In between those two, add the image and the text blocks inside of the vertical box. And that's what it does. Stretch this vertical box around and take the image, select fill, get the text box and select to fill, set both of them to fill. Now the image looks a little skewed. That's because it's because of the overall overlay. So I'm going to just extend the size of the overlay here and make this bigger and set the anchors properly. And I'm going to select the image itself because it's like stretched out. I'm going to do some padding on the left and the right side to bring it down. We're going to do 100 padding on both sides so the image doesn't look stretched. I'm going to select the text box and rename this text box to collectible_txt. Make this into a variable. Compile and save. And the image, we're going to leave it as it is. We're not going to change the image at all. So I'm just going to leave it. In the text box, just for the purpose of defaulting, I want to put in a description here. And we want to also do an auto wrap. So to do that, we can just go and select auto wrap text. So it fits everything in here. Now it has it left centered. I'm going to do it center. And we're going to change the typeface to light. Now what we want to do is when the player collects the collectible, we want this to pop out of the screen from the right side. For us to do that, we're going to use the animation and then select the animation and then click on add. And I'm going to name this the tray, collectible tray. Select the collectible tray and then click on add and select the overlay. We want to add two things. Number one is the transform and number two is the render opacity. At 0 second, we want the render opacity to be 0. And about quarter of the way, or half of the way in, we want to make it into 1. So at 0 second and half second. And we want to also change its transform. And we're going to use a translation. What translation does is it allows you to move the actual widget in and left and right or up and down based on the X and Y value over time. This is what we're going to do with our animation. We're just going to make it so that it scrolls in and out. So at the 0 second mark, we want the translation to be about 750, which will put it right outside the widget or outside the screen. And at the 1 second mark, we want this to be at 0. Compile and save. How this looks like is if you play with this, you will notice that it's going to slowly pop up. And there it is. One thing you would notice that the X is being set to 0 at this point. So we can select this keyframe, right click on it, and we can delete the keys. And this will allow it so it moves the whole way through. It becomes visible, but it's still moving all the way to the end. There you go. To make this animation work, we're going to come into our graph and we're going to create a custom event and name it Open Tray. It's a very simple function that we're going to do. We're going to drag our collectible tray in here. Again, if you don't see your collectible tray, it's usually inside of this animations folder. And off of this collectible tray, we're going to say play animation forward. And that's going to play back at 1 second, right? Playback speed is at 1. And when the event gets constructed, we want to now call open tray. And after the tray opens, we also want to get rid of it. So we're going to delay. It's going to take exactly 1 second for this tray to come into play. So that would take 1 second. And we want the player to see the tray at least for be able to read it for 4 seconds, let's say. So that would make it so that we need a total of 5-second delay and we want to close the tray. For that, we want to create a new custom function. We can just delete it if you want, but I like it to exit. So this would be close tray function. And here, same thing. I'm going to move this collectible up here and name it play animation reverse. So we'll just do it in reverse as if it's going out. And as you know, it's going to take exactly 1 second for it to go back out. The 1 second is because, if you're wondering, the animation, we set the entire thing to just a second. So, or to a frame, I guess. And there we go. And once it's completed, once the timer is run out, we're going to actually make it 1.1 just to give it one extra additional second. We want to remove from parent so that it actually gets destroyed. We're going to do the close tray function here. To add this widget to our screen, we're going to go ahead and create a keyboard key for C and say create widget and search for our collectible UI widget. And then we're going to drag off of this and say promote to variable and name this collectible UI and drag and say add to viewport. That's that. Press C. And now we wait. About 5 seconds passes and it should exit out. And this is exactly what we want. Now, off of our event construct, we also want to construct what this image and the text is going to be, because it is not going to be the same image and the text all the time. So we want to control that via a data table. This data table will control all of our collectibles. So inside of our collectibles folder, we're going to right click and then search for a structure and name the structure s underscore collectibles. And what we want in the structure first is a name. We'll give it a name. And then we're going to do a description. And this will be of type string. And the next thing that we need is the actual static mesh. And this would be of type static mesh, object reference. And that would be it for now. We're going to go ahead and close this. And we're going to right click on the same folder and go under miscellaneous. And then you'll see data table. It will ask you to select a row structure. You just need to select S collectibles in the drop down menu and then press OK. Name this DT underscore collectibles and add a row. I'm going to give it a name, simple stone, and also this description that I wrote for this, right? And for the static mesh itself, we want to select the stone mesh. And you, in your game, you would select specific ones based on what you're trying to, what each collectible is. But here for me, these are just stones, so it doesn't really matter. So I'm going to add a couple more in here. Okay, we want to get the functionality into the widget, and the only thing that we need to worry about is the description, and the same would apply for name. If you're adding a name to it, we will add the name in here as well. So quickly, we're going to grab a text box and put it on the top of the image. Name this name and is variable. Let's go ahead and stretch it out. And for the purpose of this, we're just going to name this stone and center it. Collectible text, there it is. And both of these, we want to say set text. Add it. And the text itself, we want to get it from the actual structure. So we're going to create a new variable and name it s underscore collectible info and make this of type s underscore collectible, like s collectibles. Now make this instance editable and expose on spawn so we can send this information through. So get the drag this collectibles in here, and then we're going to go ahead and break this and get the name and add it, set it to the name, and the description, we're just going to set it here. So one last thing that we're going to do is quickly do the functionality of spawning the stone in game and also give it a little bit of a rotation. To do that, let's go back to our BP collectible UI, and we're going to create a new variable and name it s collectible underscore info and name this and make this of type s collectibles and make this instance editable and expose on spawn. Compile and save. First, let's do the spinning. So I'm going to drag this collectible mesh and say get world or get rotation. World rotation. Right click, and then I'm going to split this and drag off of this Z and then add just 1 point. It's a very smooth spin. You can increase this or reduce this as to your liking. And then drag this collectible mesh in here again, and then say set world rotation. Right click on this rotation and then split it. The X value, I'm going to leave it as it is. The Y value is going to be the same. And the Z value is this new added value. And now we just plug this in. That's it for the little bit of a rotation. And off of our event begin play, I want to go back to our third person. And where we create this widget, I want to press X and then paste it here. And Control V. Control X and Control V. Cut and paste. And I need to right click on the set and then create the variable because this variable doesn't exist in here. Now I can compile and save. First, I need to get the player controller. Connect this to as our owning player. And this collectible S info, we're going to plug this in here. One last thing that we want to do is in our construction script, we want to get our collectible mesh and say set static mesh. Connect this here. And then get our S collectible, right click, drag off of it and then say break and get the static mesh and plug it in here. Compile and save this. So now this is the functionality of this is done. Now we're going to go to our third person blueprint. And now we need a space to actually spawn in the collectibles. So we're going to quickly create a new blueprint class and actor. This is just a placeholder. The placeholder is for us to get the location in world, and you don't need to do anything. Just name it placeholder and then go into your map. Now select this BP collectible UI and you can go ahead and delete it. Drag this placeholder in here and then put it. All this we need from this is the actual location of it. You can manually choose to get this location and spawn it in here. But for me, this is the easiest way. We're going to go back to our third person and off of row found, we want to say get actor of class, and I'm going to name this placeholder. There it is. I'm going to drag off of this and say get actor location. And now we have the location. Off of this, we want to now spawn actor from class. And this would be our collectibles UI. And right click on the spawn transform and then split it. And then you'll be able to connect this location in here. And also, off of this out row, we want to now plug it into the S collectible info. And that'll be it for the code. So just to walk you through how this code works is when you press C, it's going to get a random name or random row from the data table. And it's going to find the placeholder's location. And in its location, it's going to create the collectible UI. When the collectible UI gets constructed, it's going to get the static mesh from the data table, which is here. And then it's going to set it. And also, it's going to create the widget, and it's going to add it to our player screen and do a little bit of rotation. When the player's widget gets created, it's going to also get the name and the description from the data table, and it's going to set it. And additionally, it's going to do this open tray and close tray animation. If I now press play, and if I press C, there we go. And this is what you want it pop up every time the player collects the collectible. And you can go ahead and edit the UI to make it look all nice and fancy. But for the purpose of the tutorial, I think this works. But I do want to fix two things. So I'm going to go back to our BP collectible UI. And let's select our scene capture. And let's make this like 50. And also select the rect light. Make this into lumens. And make this into like 5. So it's not too bright. So if I press play now, and if I press C, that is much more like it. So folks, thank you very much for stopping by in the another part of this dungeon mechanics tutorial series. In the next part, we're going to take a look at actually spawning in the collectible and also picking up the collectible and adding it to our inventory. Make sure you subscribe to the channel so you get notified as soon as that tutorial gets released. And if this tutorial had helped you in any way, please feel free to hit that like button, as this tells me that you actually like these tutorial series, so I can continue to keep developing these tutorial series for you. Additionally, this also allows the channel to grow and reach out to many more developers just like you. Thank you again for stopping by. I'll see you on the next one. And also thank you to my Patreon, Merle Peterson. I much appreciate your support.